Hey, I'm Rusty.
And I'm Heather.
And we're the Bryants, and this is the Redeemed Marriage Podcast.
We are here to encourage healthy marriages, strengthen wounded marriages, and begin the process of restoration to broken marriages.
We aren't licensed counselors, but we are a redeemed couple that loves the Lord and wants to help you journey through this messy, challenging, and fun part of life called marriage. Welcome back to another episode of the Redeemed Marriage Podcast. This is Rusty and Heather Bryant. We are excited to be back with you for another episode. Glad to be here with you today.
And it's sun shining outside.
It has been, honestly, I woke up this morning and I said, this might be the most beautiful day of the year.
365 days a year I could do this weather.
Very nice. We are in Mississippi, for those of you who don't know, and, you know, we usually have scorching hot or 2 weeks of winter. That's about what we get around here. But today has been absolutely incredible. So I don't know where everyone is listening from around the world, but hopefully you're getting some decent weather like we are around here. So we spent a lot of the weekend outside, which was great. So I've actually been really excited about this podcast episode because we've talked about this before. We don't always, a lot of times we decide on the topic the day of, but this one was birthed out of something that we read on the internets, the World Wide Web, and
just this week.
This week, and it made me a little upset, and so I came to you several days ago and I said, this is what we're going to talk about. And so basically the gist of this was we follow some other marriage ministries on social media, and really, to be honest, it's because we like to learn ourselves. And, you know, there's 3 or 4 that, you know, we feel like believe the same things that we do, and, you know, they are Christian-based. They share, you know, their message from the Word, and it's good, and so it encourages us. And then at the same time, you know, we like to be able to point other people to other places. We're not some, you know, a ministry that's like, oh, don't, because if you go and listen to them, then that's taking away from us. No, we want to help. And so we love to point people to places that might help them. And so, and sometimes by following them on social media, we see some things, we can add value to their conversations that they start, because they'll say stuff and we'll comment to affirm what they're saying. Because, I mean, I know how it feels for us when other ministries or, you know, people that we respect jump in and they affirm the things that we say. So same thing. But anyway, this past week, one of the ministries that we follow had mentioned something about just post-affair recovery. And, you know, how I don't even remember what the post was exactly. I remember commenting on it because I just remember saying, yeah, that there's hope. Like,
and that's what the ministry was saying.
Yeah, the ministry was definitely, and I was affirming that. Sure. And there was a comment, and the comment was not directed at us. It was just directed at the, you know, the post that this ministry did. And man, it just really made me upset because it was so strong. And we're not going to read the post because I just don't think that's right if you don't have permission. I mean, I know they put it out there for the whole world to see when they put the comment, but we want to respect people. So, you know, without permission, we're not going to read it. But we want you to have the gist of it. So the gist. Can you?
I'm not going to tell them the gist without reading it. It's right here. And it's not the post. It was the comment.
Right. It was a comment.
The post was great.
Right.
The comment on it.
From just some random person.
Yes. So not somebody that's in that ministry. I want to be clear.
Good. Yep.
But it just says the gist is there's no such thing as post-affair recovery.
Post-affair recovery. Yeah.
What did I say?
Post-affair.
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 Post-affair recovery. And it just says that they do not care what anybody.
Yeah, that's the part. It says.
Says.
Right, and it was in all capital levels.
caps.
Anyone. Doesn't matter what anyone says.
Right, doesn't matter what anyone says, whether they try to say this or not, that there will always be doubt and lack of trust.
Yep.
And then it goes on to say that the person who had the affair then thinks that they can get away with anything forever.
Right.
Because they got away with, quote, got
Right.
away with that.
Because they were able to recover. If one spouse offers the opportunity to restore and recover,
Right.
then the spouse that had the affair is like, oh, well, I could just do this anytime I want to because that's on the table now.
Right. So they threw that spouse under the bus. Then they proceeded to throw the other spouse under the bus that says something to the effect that how could you think so little of yourself to forgive them and to stay in the marriage.
And then there were some posts underneath that,
Yeah,
other
that said,
people
I
that
agree.
were like,
I
oh,
agree,
yeah, I agree.
It's never going to be the same. It's never going to be the same no matter what people say, what anybody says. And I don't know if this person has been through it or not.
Right. That's right.
But
Right.
Okay,
So we don't have the background,
That's right.
but we just
and maybe in their experience, it's different.
That's right, and
Maybe
that's great that you brought up
Mm-hmm.
that point because I wanted to be fair,
Sure.
and I wanted to be able to say, okay, we have our story,
Mm-hmm.
and we're going to get into that because the question is, can you actually have a better marriage after there's been betrayal?
Right.
Okay,
And can trust be restored
that's
and
right.
all of those things.
Yes,
Right.
and we talk about that kind of stuff a lot, but I don't know that we've ever actually just addressed and talked about like,
it happen?
can you really
Right.
genuinely is our
Right.
marriage better today than it was
Right.
10 years ago?
Sure.
And so to be fair, let's just say that probably the first argument, if people are listening to us, would be, well, your situation's different. Situation's different. So you can't tell me, okay, I get it that everybody has a different story.
Sure.
So if you haven't listened to our story before, you can go back and listen all throughout this podcast. And, we've talked about it. Go back to season 2 and start there. But the Cliff Notes version of our story is we were, last week was perfect. If you want to start somewhere, listen to last week, you know everything about us. But we talked about how we were high school sweethearts, lived in the same neighborhood, ended up getting married, 2 kids, 15 years, ministry, serving together, all that kind of stuff. And then in the summer of 2011, you confessed to being unfaithful, and it had gone on for about a 3-month period, but very public, involved. There are a lot of people that it affected, friends, church, staff members, that kind of thing. It was a mess. So I say all that because there's a lot of people listening that are going, it's about as bad as it can get. Okay, so I just want to set that table. Now I know that there's people out there that are in abusive relationships, and you can't stay in those. You can't stay in abusive relationships. You can't stay in relationships where there's harm to you or your children. Habitual infidelity. I mean, yes, but we have a story, and our story is the question. The question is, can you have a better marriage? And I guess the question to us is our marriage genuinely, truly better today than it was 10 years ago before? So I would say, because obviously we're together, so it's better than when it happened.
Yeah.
But is this the best? It genuinely is the best that it's been, because I think that this post is saying no. Once you've gone down that road and you've had that betrayal, there's no way you can go back. And I call bull on that.
Mm-hmm.
So here's what I want to ask, or what I want us to think about first, because we're going to answer that question in a little bit more detail. But it's not all easy.
Mm-mm.
I mean, it's not like, oh, well, that happened 10 years ago, and it's never, well, we obviously think about it because we talk about it all the time.
Sure.
But let's just be fair for a minute and say there's still hard things about it.
Sure.
So when you think about the things that might be hard today that we would, if that hadn't have happened, you know, that part of our marriage wouldn't be hard. Can you think of something? I'll start. I'll say something, because for me, one of the things that I guess still a little bit struggle with is I have this pre-affair marriage and post-affair marriage.
Mm-hmm.
And the sometimes in my mind, it's almost like that was all just fake, you know, and that's not fair.
Sure.
Because,
nor is it true.
Right. Nor is it true, because we had a wonderful, you know, I've said this last week, but when the counselor asked, what's your best year of marriage? I said, I thought it was year 15, because I had no idea what was going on. But we had a great marriage. But because of that happened, a lot of that is skewed. And for me, and that's stuff that I have to work through. But especially during that time frame of, you know, leading up to it and when it was going on, like anything that could have potentially been positive, like with our family or our kids, just doesn't have a meaning to me other than negative
in that little season.
That's right. Yeah. And so, and the closer, even the past of the, you know, before that, the closer it got to that, the harder it is for me to, you know, separate anything. So that's one thing. I mean, that's just that's just something that I deal with.
Sure. And along those same lines, like, and we didn't even talk about this before, but, you know, my favorite app in the world is Timehop, because it pulls up pictures from everywhere on that day, 1 year ago or 2 years ago or 3 years ago, all, you know, and that's one of my favorite things, is looking back at that. But sometimes I find myself, when those Timehops come up, and they're like 15 years ago, 14 years ago, before pre all of the affair. I don't ever think, oh, that wasn't real, or, oh, I wasn't in my right mind, or, I mean, every single one of those memories is still amazing and special. What I find myself doing is going back and thinking, what would life look like if I had not made those choices? Like, I put myself in, you know, that's when things were still before the storm, you know,
right,
before the storm. And if we had not walked through the storm, then what would, at 25 years where we are now, what would it look like? Yep. And to be real honest, I don't think we would have the closeness and the realness the intimacy that we have.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying I'd want to go through that again. Does that make sense?
Well, yeah, that's what we're about to talk about.
Oh, sorry.
No, I mean, that's what this whole thing is about, is why. I mean, why, how can we actually, you know, fight that comment and say, that's
it's
crazy.
Not true. Right.
But, so those are some of the things. But yes, the Timehop thing, you're exactly right. Because a lot of times you'll send me pictures, and at the very top, when it says how many years ago it was, immediately, that's my first thought is, well, 11 years ago, I know what was going on then, you know, that kind of thing. And so part of that, and I guess the other thing I was going to say is just triggers. Like triggers, they're real and they still happen. Now, they're not to the extent that they were, obviously, but even things like that can trigger. And so, not that makes our marriage not as good, but it's a challenge. Those are challenges that continue coming up.
Because the comment specifically said that you will never trust again. And so when you are triggered like that, does it bring up, gosh, I don't trust her? Or does it bring, I mean, like, what are those feelings? I mean, I know you're saying our marriage is better now, and it is, and I'm sure we'll talk a little bit more about that. But does it, when those thoughts come, does it trigger what this lady was saying? I mean, is she right in saying that you'll never trust again?
That's a great question, because here's the one thing. I guess if nobody hears anything else out of this whole entire episode, I want them to hear this, and I want them to hear me say this. As we're saying that our marriage, I mean, the answer is yes, our marriage today is as good or better than it's ever been. So even in my opinion. Part of that is because, and like I can say this with lots of confidence and strength, is that I trust you more today than I did pre.
Sure.
And so that's genuine. Like, that's real. Why do you think that's the case? Do you know why I would trust you more? You're shrugging your shoulders.
I'm shrugging my shoulders. Tell us.
No, I mean, really, like, why do you do you feel like I trust you more today than even 5 years into our marriage?
I do. Yeah. I mean, I think it's because I've changed. Mm-hmm. I'm attempting to try to tie these two things together, but where the comment said that the person thinks they can always get away with stuff, that couldn't be further from the truth. Like, I am more tethered to you now in the fact that I want to honor you and respect you, and would never try to get away with something because of what we've been through. And I think because of that, you see that in me. And so therefore trust is stronger.
Yeah.
Also, I mean, my relationship with the Lord has come such a long way. And whereas before I was, and I want to say this correctly, when you found out, and I was hugely into worldly sorrow, and oh no, I got caught, and oh no, what people are going to think, and all of those things, I didn't at that point even have a sorrow that I had sinned against the Lord. And now, because my relationship with him has changed, and I do have a deeper and personal relationship with him, like, I can't even imagine breaking his trust in that.
Yeah.
And so, like, that's even way more important to me than breaking trust with you. Yeah. And so I think that that's just a depth that's different than pre-affair.
I think when you were just talking about the trust part of it, a lot of that has to do with time. And obviously we're 10 years, almost 11, 10 and a half years, almost 11 years. And time played a big factor in that, because time, like, trust is not immediately. No. You had to earn that.
Sure.
And just like what you're saying, all those things that have led to me trusting you more today is because you earned it. Like, and that's what happens when trust is broken. You have to earn it back. So over time, the trust is earned. And it's earned back. Also, just the pain of the memories and stuff, slowly fades over time as you build new memories. Sure. And like, as we were building new memories throughout this last decade, then it erases a lot of, it doesn't erase them. Yeah. It just, again, it's just a distance.
It's kind of like, and if you don't mind me getting off topic for just a second, I have someone in my family very special to me that just lost a baby. Time is going to help that. Sure. And having new memories, whether they have another child, or if it's just new memories with the child they already have, or like, time and new memories heal that. And it doesn't make it any less real, and doesn't make it any less painful when you revisit it. But there are memories and circumstances and new things that time brings that makes things. So it's not, we're not just talking about this one topic in marriage. Like, there's lots of things that take a long time to heal, like unfaithfulness or losing a child, or, there's numerous things you can put in there. But then there's also things that don't take as long to heal, but there's still hurts that you can get triggered from.
Mm-hmm.
And those can be smaller, but it's still the same process of healing.
You know, as we have gone through time and those things have gotten better, even, I mean, some people may have this thought in their mind, especially if they've gone through recent betrayal, but they may even think about physical intimacy.
Right.
Like, you know, and again, that's something that just takes time and over time. But I mean, even for us, I mean, again, this is real and genuine, but I mean, it can be better today and better than it's ever been. And that's the truth.
Sure.
So the other thing that we're talking about time and how time has made it better and erased, not erased, but it's just time has helped to heal. But I think that there were literally things that were better almost immediately after our crisis. And I mean, even to the point within the first year or so, there was a couple that actually said to us, almost jokingly, but kind of said, we almost wish we could go through a crisis so we could have a marriage like y'all's. And so there were things that were like immediately different. What are some things? Can you think of some things? Like for me, I think that communication was the biggest thing because I mean, we were holding on for dear life and we had to learn how to, you know secrets, like everything just got real.
Yeah.
And
well, that's the one that I was going to say. It's just the realness of both of us. It was almost like both of us took off a perfect mask.
Yeah. I mean, I did.
Sure.
I remember because obviously you had to and telling me stuff, but then it was almost like this freedom of, okay, well, I can tell you things that I've just never told you before because I didn't want you to, not that it was something I was hiding from you, but there was just not a real honesty of like things that daily struggles that I would have. Like I wouldn't have ever told you because I didn't want it to hurt you or to hurt our relationship or you to think less of me. But then all of a sudden it was like, let's go.
Yeah.
I mean, let's just be real.
Real and honest. Yeah. Yeah.
That was definitely one. And also just like this was probably more for you, but we both learned it and you kind of mentioned it, but the unselfishness, like it was just sort of an immediate, all right, your eyes had to be off of you immediately.
Of me. Right.
And so that changed because we just both were serving and giving at that time.
My mentor, that if you have not listened to her podcast that she did with us, please go back
November.
Yeah, and listen to it. It was amazing. But one of the things that she would tell me and now I lost it. Dad gummit. I started talking about her and I forgot what I was going to say that she said. Sorry.
Well, okay, if you think about it, we'll come back to it. But another thing that I think changed immediately and probably helped us on a fast track to being a better marriage so quickly was just boundaries. Boundaries were put into place that we never had before. We should have had. And so that's a message to you people out there that are going, oh, well, I don't, I'm not really into this particular episode because we're not having these problems and these crises, but we're saying do these things now and you don't run into that. The things like the communication and the unselfishness and setting those boundaries before things actually happen. And I would even say even just our companionship in those first days, it was like, again, we were hanging on for dear life, and it was like it literally was us against the world.
That's right.
Because everybody thought we were doomed, and so fighting together, and sort of fighting alone, but it really grew our companionship, and and today we just, it's continued. We would rather probably be with each other than anybody else.
Sure. Yep.
So, did you think of it?
No, sorry.
Okay, well,
I'm really into what you're saying, so I can't stop and think back.
Well, here's the thing. I want everybody out there to hear that what this comment said, that they don't believe that anybody. Okay, so I'm just telling you it's wrong because we are anybody.
That's right.
And I don't think we're the only people in the entire world that could stand up and say, hey, we've gone through a betrayal, the worst of the worst.
Let's be real. We know of couples.
Oh yeah, we
that
know
we've
of
walked
couples.
with
Absolutely,
that say it's better now.
Yes, and we were even speaking to a couple. We were even speaking to a couple last night. And look, here's the other thing. It's not just even if you've been through a betrayal, but can the emotions and stuff from your wedding day and honeymoon, those emotions don't last forever. But can your marriage be better than it was on your wedding day and on your honeymoon? Absolutely. I mean, and I'm telling you, we're not the only ones. But last night we were even talking to a couple, and they've only been married for a few years, but they were telling us that they're
1 and 2.
Yeah, 1 and 2 were really hard. 3 and 4 have gotten so much better. And like we love, and they've gone through some struggles, but we love hearing that because it just proves that this crazy comment was not right.
Right. Well, and I think you have to be really careful in life with the words anyone.
Yeah, sure.
Never. Always. You have to be really careful with that. But nobody can tell us what our story is. And that's the same thing with you guys. Yep. Like, it's your story. And, and like when you were saying a while ago that it was us against the world, I think that drew us closer together.
Sure.
Because we had close friends that were telling us, or either saying y'all are crazy or you're crazy. Nobody ever said I was crazy, but for wanting it, but they were saying you were crazy for trying to fix it. And then they also, like, we had people just run, and like that just fueled our fire into, oh yeah, watch what God can do.
Yeah.
And so, it's your relationship. It's your marriage, and nobody can speak into what it is or what it's not.
All right, so we've got just a few minutes, and this last part is fixing to be very, very profound. So stay on top of this for a second, because I'm fixing to give a blueprint, it's a simple sort of a blueprint for how to make sure that if there's something that happens where you can get to a point where your marriage is better, like we are saying that ours is. And so here's the part that there's people out there that are listening, and some people are going, yeah, well, I get it. Yeah, y'all's marriage is better, but mine can't be because my spouse doesn't care.
That's
my
right.
spouse is not trying. My spouse, we're just staying together for the kids, that sort of thing. We get it. We get it. So here's what I'm saying. The blueprint, this is why our marriage is better today than it was on July the 27th, 1996, when we got married. That was a long time ago.
It was a long time ago.
The blueprint is this. When you confess to me forgiveness, like I had to forgive you. So if there's a spouse out there that's listening, they've been betrayed, they have to forgive. We've done a whole entire episode on forgiveness and what it means, and forgiveness is not for you, it's for me. It's to take that to take that burden off of me and say, you're not holding me captive anymore, but I forgive you and I am releasing it. That's the first step. Like, you genuinely have to forgive your spouse in order to start. Then for the spouse that's been betrayed, it becomes, am I willing to allow you to regain my trust? Am I willing for that to happen? Those are the two things that have to take place, is that I have to genuinely forgive, and then I have to say, okay, I'm willing for there to be a restoration, but you got to do your part in order to be restored.
That's right.
So the blueprint for the other spouse, the one that has betrayed, is transformation. And that's what we heard in the sermon this morning. And it's an inward transformation.
That's right.
And if that transformation doesn't happen, then yeah, there's people out there that are listening that are going, no, we're not seeing it like y'all are. Well, we're saying the reason why we are in the position we are is because you were transformed on the inside through Jesus. And I forgave you and then allowed to watch Jesus work this transformation in you. And as that happened, I was willing to let our relationship be restored. And look, I'm telling you, that comment is wrong. You can have a better marriage. And I am declaring that my wife that betrayed me and was unfaithful, I trust her more today than I did the day that we got married. Mm-hmm. And that is a big, big statement.
Mm-hmm. That's right. And it's true.
It is.
And I don't want anybody, no one can take that away from us. And I want you to declare over your marriage that yours will be different. That God can do the same thing in your marriage, but you can't do it alone. And, I think about couples that we know or that we've talked to that maybe, because we always say the person who was unfaithful has to transform, which you do. And then the person who was like, you have to do the forgiving. But there's couples out there that the person who was unfaithful hasn't come around to wanting or deserving forgiveness because they're not trying to transform. And so the person who was cheated on is trying to hold things together. They're trying to hold their families together. And so it doesn't have to fit into the perfect little box that we're talking about. We know circumstances are different. We know stories are different. We know that everybody's story looks different, but we all serve the same God. And he is powerful to be able to heal and restore whatever the story looks like.
Right.
So there has to be, I love that that Chip was talking this morning about transformation. And, we knew already we were going to be talking about this. And so it's not just one person that has to be transformed. Of course I had to be transformed. I was living in sin and I had to fall in love with Jesus and be forgiven and move forward. But you had to be transformed too.
Absolutely.
Because the person that you were, the hurt, damaged person that you were, had to be transformed into being able to be able to forgive.
Yeah, and to be able to journey through what we were journeying through together.
Right. So I just, gosh, so many times I think as we're talking that I pray over people not to sit in their house or in their van or while they're walking and think, gosh, my spouse needs to listen to this. Don't do that. Right. Like where do you need to be transformed? Where is God saying, hey, I need you to look a little bit more like me in this? Like God saying that, not me. Yeah. But in ways that you need to look a little bit more like Jesus. Quit trying to fix your spouse. Yeah. Just you listen to this and say, I am claiming that my marriage is going to look different and that it is going to be hard work, but I'm willing to do it.
Definitely. We went long today.
Sorry.
But my goodness.
Hey, before you sign off, go rate.
We talked about this yesterday. Yeah.
And we find out that people are cutting us off. Don't cut us off.
Don't cut us off. Hey, don't cut us off because I have two more really profound things to say.
But rate and review. Rate and review. Okay, go. Sorry.
Hey, but seriously, the reason why we went long is because this means a lot to us. This is something that we're really passionate about because two things that we heard in our sermon, two quotes we heard in our sermon this morning. One was, your mess is a platform for your message. Yep. And that's exactly why we've been talking for the last 30-something minutes. And then the hope that you have is the hope that you are going to give. And that's exactly why we do this podcast.
That's right.
Every week. So we want
to
leave.
Henderson didn't even know we were talking about this. He crushed it this morning.
Today, and it was right on with what we were already thinking about and what we were planning to share today. Yep. So, hey, that's the hope we want to leave with you. Your marriage, no matter where it's been, no matter what state it's in, it can be better, and it can grow into something that's even better than it was on your wedding day. So we're going to sign off, and we will see you guys next week.